She applied for a job, but unexpectedly became the wife of a powerful millionaire, CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. She stands outside a glass tower that slices into the gray morning sky, clutching a thin folder against her chest like it is the last solid thing she owns. Inside that folder is her resume, printed on borrowed paper, the ink slightly smudged at the corner. She takes a breath that does not quite reach her lungs. This is not just a job interview. This is her final shot. The revolving doors whisper as they turn. And suddenly, she is inside a world that smells like polished marble and expensive coffee. Everything here is quiet, controlled, powerful. Men and women move with purpose, heels clicking, voices low, eyes sharp. No one looks lost, no one looks scared. Except her. She smooths her blazer, one size too big, bought secondhand, the sleeves folded inward to fit her arms. Her phone vibrates in her pocket, a reminder she does not need. Rent overdue. Medical bills waiting. A deadline that does not care about hope or effort. The receptionist barely glances up. Name? She says it clearly, steadying her voice. The receptionist points down the hall without a smile. The elevator ride feels longer than it is. Each floor number lights up like a countdown. When the doors open, the air changes. Quieter, colder. This floor belongs to one man. The interview room is minimal. One table, two chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And him. He does not stand when she enters. He is seated at the head of the table, posture straight, suit perfectly tailored, his presence heavy enough to fill the room without a single word. This is the man people whisper about, the man whose decisions move markets, the man employees fear and investors worship, the powerful millionaire chief executive officer who built his empire with precision and ice in his veins. He lifts his eyes to her, and for a brief moment, everything else disappears. Sit, he says. She does. The interview is short, brutally efficient. He does not ask about dreams. He asks about skills, pressure, limits, what she would sacrifice to succeed. Each question lands like a test she cannot afford to fail. She answers honestly because she has nothing left to pretend with. At last, he closes the folder containing her resume. You are qualified, he says, flat and unreadable. Relief sparks in her chest, sharp and fragile. Then he adds, but this position is no longer what you think it is. Her heart stutters. He leans back slightly, fingers interlaced, eyes never leaving hers. I need more than an employee. Silence stretches between them. I need a wife. The words do not make sense at first. They float in the air, heavy, absurd, terrifying. She blinks, certain she misheard him. I'm sorry, she says carefully. I think there has been a misunderstanding. There has not, he replies calmly. This is a contract. A legal arrangement. You will be compensated well. You will live here. You will appear at my side when required. And when the contract ends, you walk away free. Her pulse roars in her ears. She came here looking for a job. She did not know she was about to be offered a marriage that would change her life forever. She does not respond right away. The words still echo in her head as if the room itself has spoken them. A wife. Not a role she applied for. Not a future she imagined. Her fingers tighten in her lap, nails pressing into skin she barely feels. I am here for a job, she finally says, her voice calm but thin. If this is some kind of joke, I would rather leave now. It is not a joke, he replies. He stands at last, moving toward the window, the city spread beneath him like a controlled asset. He does not look back when he speaks again. You were not selected by accident. I reviewed dozens of candidates. You stood out because you are not desperate in the way most people are. Her breath catches. She almost laughs at the irony. I am desperate, she says quietly. I just do not lie about it. That makes him turn. For the first time, something shifts in his expression. Not warmth, not kindness, recognition. You need this position, he says, more than you want to admit. She does not deny it. He gestures for her to remain seated and returns to the table, placing a slim black folder in front of her. It is not her resume. It is thicker. He opens it and slides it toward her. This is a legal contract, he says. Temporary, confidential, mutually beneficial. She looks down but does not touch it. My family board has issued an ultimatum, he continues. Appear married within 90 days or relinquish control of the company I built. Her eyes lift slowly. They do not care who I marry, he says. They care about optics, stability, legacy. She swallows. I require someone with no ties to my world, he adds. No ambitions to exploit it. Someone who can follow rules. And you think that is me? She says. I know it is you, he answers. Her mind races. This is insane. And yet, the folder sits there, solid, real. She thinks of her apartment, the notice taped to the door, the numbers she has run again and again, hoping they would change. How long? She asks. 1 year, he says. After that, the marriage dissolves, cleanly. And if I say no? He does not threaten her. He does not raise his voice. Then you walk out, he says, and nothing changes. Everything changes, she thinks. What are the rules? She asks. A faint pause, almost respect. He lists them carefully. No romantic involvement, no interference in business decisions, no disclosure to media or family, public appearances only when necessary, privacy protected, compensation generous, housing provided. And if I break them, she asks. The contract ends, he says, immediately. She studies his face, searching for something reckless, something cruel. She finds neither. Only a man who has turned his life into a controlled structure and refuses to let emotion touch it. And you, she says, what happens if you break them? I do not, he replies. The honesty in that statement unsettles her more than arrogance would have. She exhales slowly, then reaches for the folder at last. The paper is heavier than she expected. I did not come here to sell myself, she says. He meets her gaze. Neither did I, he replies. I am buying time. She flips through the pages. The numbers make her chest tighten. This would solve everything. The rent, the debt, the fear that has followed her into sleep for months. This is not love, she tells herself. This is survival. She looks up again. If I agree, she says, this is business, nothing more. He nods once. Exactly. Her pen hesitates above the signature line. She signs. The signature dries faster than she expects. Once the ink settles, there is no dramatic pause. No congratulatory tone, no smile. He closes the folder with a quiet finality, as if they have just completed a routine transaction. Good, he says. We begin immediately. Her stomach tightens. Immediately? He presses a button on the table. The door opens almost at once, as if someone has been waiting on the other side the entire time. This is Evelyn, he says as a woman steps in, composed, efficient, eyes sharp but not unkind. She will handle logistics. Evelyn nods once. Your schedule has already been adjusted. We will start with legal formalities this afternoon. She looks between them, disoriented. I thought this was confidential. It is, he says, but it is also precise. There is no room for mistakes. Within minutes, her life begins to move without her permission. Papers are signed. Identifications are scanned. A temporary non-disclosure agreement is explained line by line. She listens, nods, responds when prompted, but it all feels unreal, like watching someone else make decisions using her hands. By evening, she is sitting in the back seat of a black car, watching the city slide past the window. Evelyn sits in front, tapping on a tablet. He sits beside her, distant, focused, already elsewhere. This is your residence, he says as the car slows before iron gates. Her breath catches. The house is not just large, it is quiet in a way she has never known. Not empty, controlled. Every light deliberate. Every surface untouched by chaos. Inside, she is shown a bedroom that feels more like a hotel suite than a home. There are no personal items, no warmth, just space. You will stay here, he says. My room is down the hall, separate. She nods quickly, grateful for that at least. Dinner is brief, polite, silent. He eats little. She eats carefully, aware of every movement, every sound. Later, he hands her another document. These are the rules, he says. She recognizes them, the same ones from the contract, now written in simpler language. No emotional involvement, no physical intimacy, no questions about his past, no interference in his decisions. And appearances, he adds. Tomorrow night, charity gala, our first public event. Her fork pauses midair. Tomorrow? Yes. I have never been to a gala, she says. That is acceptable, he replies. You will learn. She wants to ask how. When? At what cost? Instead, she asks, "What do I call you?" He looks at her for a moment. "In public, my name. In private, whatever keeps boundaries intact." "And you," she says softly, "what do you call me?" He considers this. "My wife." The word lands differently this time. That night, alone in a bed too large to feel safe, she stares at the ceiling, listening to a house that does not breathe. She presses a hand to her chest, grounding herself. This is not love, she reminds herself again. This is an agreement. Down the hall, he stands at his window, city lights reflecting in the glass. He removes his jacket, loosens his tie, and exhales slowly. For the first time since signing the contract, something unfamiliar settles in his chest. Not regret, uncertainty. Morning comes too fast. She wakes before the alarm, disoriented by silence that feels heavier than noise. For a moment, she forgets where she is. Then, she remembers everything at once. The contract, the house, the man down the hall who is now, by law, her husband. A knock sounds at the door, precise, controlled. Evelyn enters with a calm smile and an armful of clothes. "We have a full day," she says. "Let us begin." They start with appearance. Tailors adjust fabric against her shoulders. Stylists test colors against her skin. Someone smooths her hair. Someone else teaches her how to walk in heels she would never have chosen for herself. She feels like she is being prepared for a role she did not audition for. "Stand straight," Evelyn says gently. "Confidence first. Elegance follows." She tries. She stumbles once. No one laughs. That surprises her. By midday, she is taken through etiquette lessons. Where to stand. When to speak. When silence is more powerful. She listens carefully, absorbing rules the way she has learned to absorb survival skills. Through it all, he appears only briefly, observing, silent, correcting a detail here, adjusting timing there, never touching, never crossing the line he himself drew. In the afternoon, she is brought to a fitting room lined with mirrors. "This will be your dress for tonight," Evelyn says. The dress is simple, black, clean lines, no excess. It does not scream wealth, it whispers control. When she steps out wearing it, the room goes quiet. He looks at her then, really looks. "Acceptable," he says. She does not know why that word stings more than criticism would have. The car ride to the gala is quiet. City lights blur past the windows. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers tightly intertwined. "You do not need to speak unless spoken to," he says calmly. "Follow my lead." "And if someone is rude," she asks. "Then you remain composed," he replies. "I will handle it." The venue glows with chandeliers and polished marble. Voices rise and fall in controlled laughter. Cameras flash. Names are spoken with reverence. He places his hand at the small of her back. Light, professional, enough for appearances. "This is my wife," he says to the first group they approach. The word echoes again, louder this time. She smiles. She nods. She listens. Someone comments on her dress. Someone asks where she studied. Someone else assumes she comes from old money. She corrects no one. Then it happens. A woman steps forward, gaze sharp, smile thin. "I had no idea you were married," she says, eyes never leaving her face. "You must be very adaptable." The insult is quiet, polite, public. She feels the room tilt. Her instinct is to retreat, to apologize, to make herself smaller. Instead, she breathes. "I am," she says evenly. "Adaptability is how people survive." There is a pause. The woman laughs awkwardly and moves on. He looks at her then, surprised. Later, as the evening winds down, she notices something else. He does not let anyone speak over her. He does not correct her. He watches how she carries herself now, steadier with each moment. When they return to the car, the tension finally breaks. "You did well," he says. It is the first compliment he has given her. She looks out the window, heart still racing. "I just followed the rules." He nods, but his eyes linger on her reflection in the glass. For the first time since signing the contract, she feels something unexpected. Not fear, momentum. The headlines appear the next morning. She does not read them at first. She hears them. The quiet buzz of his phone on the kitchen counter. The low murmur of the television she forgot to turn off. Her name, spoken by strangers, wrapped in speculation. New wife appears beside the most powerful CEO in the city. She stands still, mug cooling in her hands. He enters the room already dressed, tie perfect, expression neutral. He glances at the screen once, then turns it off. "You will not respond," he says calmly, "neither publicly nor privately." "I was not planning to," she replies. That is the truth. She learned long ago that attention rarely comes with kindness. The real test does not come from the media. It comes hours later, inside a room with no cameras and no applause. The boardroom. She sits beside him at the long, polished table, aware of every pair of eyes assessing her value like a line item. Men and women in tailored suits exchange glances that say everything without a word. One of them smiles thinly. "We were not informed of this arrangement in advance." "It was not a discussion," he replies. "It was a decision." Another voice follows. "With all due respect, this feels impulsive." Silence settles. She keeps her posture straight, her hands folded, her expression calm. Then a third member speaks, older, sharper. "May we ask what qualifications your wife brings to this role?" There it is. She feels the familiar pull to disappear, to let him answer, to stay invisible. But something in her resists. Before he can speak, she lifts her gaze. "I do not manage his company," she says evenly. "I manage myself." The room stills. "I understand why my presence feels inconvenient," she continues. "I did not grow up in boardrooms. I do not speak in forecasts or percentages. But I know pressure, I know responsibility, and I know what it costs when people are treated as expendable." A pause. "I am not here to advise you," she finishes. "I am here because he asked me to stand beside him. That is all." No apology, no explanation beyond that. Someone scoffs quietly. Someone else studies her more closely. He does not interrupt. He does not correct her. When the meeting ends, the tension follows them into the hallway. "That was unnecessary," he says once they are alone. She stops walking. "I followed the contract," she replies. "I did not interfere with business. I spoke only when addressed." He watches her carefully. "They will not forget that," he says. "I am not asking them to," she answers. That night, the house feels different, not warmer, just less hollow. They eat dinner in silence again, but it is not the same silence as before. It carries weight now. "You could have stayed quiet," he says finally. She meets his gaze. "You hired me to follow rules, not to erase myself." Something shifts then, subtle, unnamed. Days pass, appearances multiply, each one harder than the last. She is criticized, praised, dissected. She adapts without losing her voice. And slowly, something else becomes clear. People listen when she speaks, not because of his name, because she does not pretend to be what she is not. One evening, after another public function, he hands her a glass of water instead of wine. "You notice details," he says. She blinks. "I had to." He studies her for a moment, then looks away. "This arrangement," he says carefully, "was designed to protect control." She nods. "I know. And yet," he adds quieter, "it is changing things I did not intend." She does not ask what he means, but for the first time since signing the contract, neither of them reaches for distance. The test is not over, it has only begun. The house is quiet again, but it no longer feels empty. It is late. The city beyond the windows glows in soft fragments of light, distant and indifferent. She stands in the kitchen, barefoot on cold stone, rereading a message on her phone she never sends. There is nothing urgent in it, just a reminder of who she was before all of this began. She hears him enter without announcing himself. "You are still awake," he says. "So are you," she replies. He pours himself a glass of water and leans against the counter, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up. Without the suit, without the boardroom, he looks different, less controlled, more human. "You handled tonight well," he says. She nods but does not smile. "It was not difficult. People expect less when they assume you do not belong." He studies her for a moment. "You belong here." The words surprise them both. Silence stretches, softer than before. "Why me?" she asks suddenly. "Out of everyone you could have chosen." He does not answer right away. His gaze drifts toward the window. "Because you do not ask for access," he says finally. "You do not negotiate your worth." She waits. "My last marriage was a negotiation," he continues. "Every gesture calculated, every conversation recorded somewhere I could not see." She did not know there was a last marriage. "I learned that love, when treated as leverage, becomes dangerous," he says. "So I removed it from the equation." She leans back against the counter, arms crossed loosely. And what happens if it does not stay removed? His jaw tightens slightly. Then the contract ends. Immediately, she repeats. Yes. She looks at him, really looks at him now. The lines of exhaustion he never shows in public, the tension that never leaves his shoulders. You are afraid, she says quietly. He meets her gaze, surprised by her certainty. Of losing control, she adds, not of being hurt. Something shifts in his expression. He does not deny it. I built everything by anticipating weakness, he says, including my own. And now, she says gently, you live inside that anticipation. He exhales slowly, the sound uneven. I did not intend for you to notice that, he admits. I notice because I have lived it, she replies, just without the money. The honesty between them settles, fragile but real. I want to be clear, she says after a moment. I am following the contract. I am not asking for more. I know, he says. But if this is going to work, she continues, then silence cannot always be the solution. He considers this. What are you suggesting, he asks. Boundaries, she says, not walls. A faint, almost imperceptible smile crosses his face, gone as quickly as it appears. That is a dangerous distinction, he says. So is pretending distance protects you, she replies. They stand there, neither moving away. He breaks the moment first. There will be another board meeting tomorrow, he says. They will push harder. I know, she answers. You do not have to attend, he adds. She looks up at him. Do you want me there? He pauses. Yes, he says. Not as an order, as a request. Later that night, alone in her room, she sits on the edge of the bed, the house quieter than it has ever been. She presses her feet into the floor, grounding herself. This is still an agreement, she reminds herself. But somewhere between rules and silence, something else has begun to surface. Down the hall, he loosens his tie and rests his hands on the back of a chair, staring into space. For the first time in years, control no longer feels like safety, and that unsettles him more than any boardroom threat ever has. The shift comes without warning. It begins with a call he does not take. She notices it first. His phone lights up on the counter during breakfast, a name she does not recognize. He flips the device face down without a glance. You are not eating, she says. I am not hungry, he replies. That is when she knows something is wrong. By noon, the rumors have moved faster than facts. Messages appear on her phone from numbers she does not know. Articles written with careful language and sharp intent. Words like arrangement, transaction, convenience. She does not open them. She does not need to. The confrontation happens that evening. They are halfway through dinner when the door opens without announcement. A woman steps inside, heels precise, posture practiced, eyes cold with familiarity. I see nothing has changed, the woman says, still avoiding difficult conversations. He stands slowly. You should not be here. And yet, she replies, glancing at her, here I am. The air tightens. This is my wife, he says firmly. The woman smiles. Is she? She turns to her then. How much is he paying you? Silence crashes down like a held breath. She feels it then. Not anger, not shame, betrayal. Because he does not respond immediately. I asked you to leave, he says finally. But you did not deny it, the woman counters. Funny how contracts always surface when there is something to hide. She reaches into her bag and places a folder on the table. Board copies, she says, signed, dated, everything very clean. Her hands tremble, just once. This was private, he says, his voice low. Nothing stays private when power is involved, the woman replies, especially when emotions start interfering. She looks at her again. You should know, this ends badly for women like you. That is when she stands. I am not like you, she says calmly. The woman laughs. You already are. She turns and leaves as abruptly as she arrived. The door closes. The silence remains. Is it true? She asks quietly. He does not answer. Is this marriage nothing but paperwork to you? She presses. He looks at her then, and for the first time, he looks uncertain. This arrangement was meant to be controlled, he says. I did not anticipate her interference. That is not what I asked, she says. The pause stretches too long. She steps back. You promised honesty within the rules, she says. You broke that. I did not lie, he replies. I withheld. Her chest tightens. There is no difference. She turns away, blinking hard. This is exactly why contracts fail, she says. Because people use them to avoid accountability. You knew the terms, he says, sharper now. Defensive. Yes, she answers. But I did not agree to be humiliated. The distance between them widens, invisible but absolute. You should stay in your room tonight, he says. She laughs softly, without humor. You do not get to dismiss me like an employee. She walks away before he can respond. Behind closed doors, she presses her back against the wall, breathing shallowly. The house feels colder now, louder in its quiet. Down the hall, he remains standing in the dining room, staring at the folder left behind. For the first time since this began, control slips through his fingers, and this time, it is not the board he is afraid of losing. It is her. The boardroom is full when she walks in. She does not expect to be here. She did not plan for this. Evelyn called her less than an hour ago with a single sentence that felt heavier than any warning. He has called an emergency meeting. You should come. Now she stands at the far end of the room, hands steady at her sides, heart loud in her chest. Every seat is occupied, every face turned toward him. He is already there. He does not look at her right away. He stands at the head of the table, shoulders squared, expression unreadable. The same man they have always known, except something in him has shifted. A board member clears his throat. We need to address the situation immediately. Yes, he replies. We do. A screen lights up behind him. Headlines, leaked documents, the contract. A murmur ripples through the room. This arrangement compromises the integrity of this company, someone says. You misled us. Another voice cuts in. You place personal interest above fiduciary responsibility. She feels every word like a blade aimed in her direction. He raises a hand. The room stills. You are correct, he says calmly. I made a decision without your approval. Gasps, anger, satisfaction. But you are wrong about one thing, he continues. This was never about convenience. He turns then, looks directly at her. For months you have questioned my judgment, he says to the board. Today I am not asking for your trust. I am correcting a mistake. He reaches into his briefcase and removes the folder. The contract. She feels her breath catch. This document was created to protect control, he says, and it failed. He opens it, flips to the final page, and without hesitation, tears it cleanly down the center. The sound is sharp, final. I no longer require this agreement, he says evenly, nor will I hide behind it. Someone stands abruptly. You cannot do this. I can, he replies, and I am. He steps forward. If this company believes that leadership requires deception, then I am prepared to step aside. The room erupts. No, someone says. This is reckless. On the contrary, he answers. This is accountability. He turns to her again, his voice lower now, no longer for them. I chose the wrong way to protect what matters, he says, and I hurt someone who never deserved it. Silence presses in. I am not asking you to stay, he says to her. I am not offering terms. I am not hiding behind paper. He places the torn contract on the table. I am choosing you, he says, or I lose you. Her chest tightens. The room fades around them. She steps forward, slowly. You are not choosing me, she says quietly. You are choosing truth. He nods. Yes. She looks at the faces around the table, at the power that once intimidated her, then back at him. This does not erase what happened, she says, but it tells me who you are willing to be. She turns to leave. He does not stop her. But when the doors close behind her, something in the room has changed forever. And for the first time, he does not chase control. He lets go. The house feels different when she returns, not because anything has changed physically. The walls are the same. The rooms are still too quiet. But the silence no longer feels like a command. It feels like space. She does not know how much time passes before she hears him. Footsteps, slow, uncertain. He does not knock. I did not expect you to come back tonight, he says. I did not expect you to tear the contract in half, she replies. They stand across from each other in the living room, the distance between them smaller than it has ever been, heavier than before. I meant what I said, he continues. There are no terms left, no protection, no leverage. She studies him carefully. The man in front of her is still powerful, still controlled, but something essential is missing. The armor. You gave up more than a document today, she says. Yes, he answers. I gave up the excuse. She nods once. Good. They sit, not touching, not rushing. The city hums beyond the windows. I am not staying because of what you did in that room, she says. I am staying because you finally stopped hiding. I am not asking you to forgive me, he replies. I am asking you to see me clearly. I do, she says. Days pass, then weeks. The headlines change. The board reshuffles. The company stabilizes. He remains at the helm, not because he forced control, but because he earned trust, and she no longer walks behind him. At events, she stands beside him, not as an accessory, not as a shield, but as herself. She speaks when she chooses. She listens when it matters. People no longer question why she is there. They ask how she changed things. One evening, months later, he brings her back to the place where it began. Not the boardroom, not the gala, the interview room. The same table, the same windows, the city still waiting outside. This is where I first tried to reduce you to an agreement, he says quietly. And failed, she replies. He reaches into his pocket and removes a small box. No cameras, no witnesses. This is not a contract, he says. There are no rules, no timelines, no expectations. He opens it. Will you choose me? He asks, without obligation. She does not answer right away. She thinks of the woman who stood outside this building with borrowed paper and borrowed hope. The woman who signed to survive. The woman who learned when to walk away. She steps forward. I already did, she says. Later, the wedding is small. No spectacle, no performance, just truth. As she walks toward him, she realizes something that makes her smile. She did not apply for a job. She did not accept a contract. She chose a partner. And he, the man once feared for his control, learns the one thing power never taught him. Love is not enforced, it is chosen.